All right, y'all. Here we go. Congratulations on this score on this project. When I got the email about talking with you guys about it, I was pretty psyched. I in addition to being a composer myself, and I'm also a fan of suddenly binging TV shows. So this gave me an opportunity to do that, but also I'm really psyched to kind of geek out with you a little bit. I thought the score was super rad. I love the show. And so thanks for joining me on this.
Yeah, of course.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So first of all, just an observation I wanted to say. When I was watching this, pretty early on, I was reminded of one of my absolute favorite film scores of all time, which is Carter Burwell's score to Raising Arizona.
All right.
Have you guys seen or heard that recently?
Not recently. I think, when did that come out?
1987.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think I must have seen it back then. I'll have to go and check it out again.
It is absolutely bananas. It's actually kind of worth listening to the score by itself because it's so playful and zany. It's like something that you just could never get away with doing right now. Like it's just like one of those examples of like just unbridled, committed expression that on a feature film you just like can't get away with doing.
I haven't. I definitely have seen that film, but I can't remember the score. But I definitely really enjoy his score.
Yeah.
And that Cohen brothers tone. I think Polly and I would have. I seem to remember speaking about that at the start. But that sort of like arch black comedy tone is definitely something that we needed to get into the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it wasn't just the score, but kind of the whole thing. And like I said, it's one of my favorite films of all time. One of my favorite scores as well. So what was your starting point working together? Whose idea was this collaboration?
Actually, it came from Sharon Horgan. She just said to me, how would you feel about collaborating with PJ Harvey on the score? And I said, sounds great. And then I don't know how you guys had met, actually, Polly. She never told me, but
I hadn't met her before, so Sharon reached out to me and gave me an outline of the project and said, would I be interested in being involved? And I think even at that stage, she felt really strongly that she wanted the Leonard Cohen "Who by Fire" as the main title track. She knew that, and she knew she wanted me to sing it. So that's when she reached out to me. And then when she and I finally chatted on Zoom, I think, first of all, she talked about you and said how much she'd enjoyed working on you on your previous project with her, which was what, Tim?
That was Shining Veil for Stars. Yeah.
So I think she had it in mind that she wanted to put the two of us together.
So it wasn't just the song that you were initially engaged to do, or was it like the song and then it was like, also this?
No, I think she probably had a hunch that Tim and I would get on well, I think. And so I think right from the start she knew she wanted us to collaborate fully on the score for the series.
Yeah, that's definitely what she said over to me. So yeah.
And
but then the reason it took the shape it did, which was actually quite beneficial to us, but at the time it was just what we had to do, is because I was busy with other work, so I couldn't engage with Tim as much as we wanted to. So Tim had the idea that just in a few days together in London, we could grab a lot of my vocal work that he could then take away and play with.
Yeah,
so that actually was wonderfully beneficial because it became the theme and the feel of the whole soundtrack, didn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it's yeah, it was sort of a fix to a pickle. Basically, we were like, how are we gonna make a score in the shortest time humanly possible? So
Yeah.
yeah, so we had an enormous list of stuff that we came up with.
Well, Tim, you were amazing, because we talked about harnessing as many different vocal sounds as possible, but Tim came so well prepared. He knew exactly every different vowel sound, every different consonant he wanted me to sing, and we did each one 5 times at different pitches, right? Something like that. We're thinking about the 5 sisters, so the 5 voices. It was 5, wasn't it? Yeah, there were 5.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And
yeah,
then,
I remember writing that list thinking there's no way. I was like, this I'm gonna get about three samples in, and then I'm just gonna, like, steam out of the studio and into a
never lose.
He was so well prepared, which is what I love, because I thought, how are we going to grab everything like on one day in the studio? It's going to be impossible. But he knew exactly what we were doing.
Hard drive, Tim. Never lose that hard drive.
So it helped me enormously, because Tim was very organized and made me work hard, but we got everything, didn't we?
Yeah, there was also a funny moment near the start of the session where we started with Who by Fire to do that track, and I think we'd worked the key out in about 11 seconds when over a Zoom call. I just said, what do you think about, I can't remember what it's in now. I think it might anyway, at whatever key it was, and then you just picked up a guitar and went, yeah, that's fine. And I thought, oh, okay. But I really like working quickly, and clearly you were someone who just works really, really quickly, you know. And I remember you were turning up and saying, I never do more than 3 takes of anything, by the way. And then,
I think you said to me, how many times do you think you'd like to get comfortable, to settle in before we do the take? And I was like, just start recording. I don't really sing more than 3 times in a row.
You know what's funny about this, and this I read a little bit about this in one of your interviews, Tim, and it got me psyched because well, first of all, on the vocal recording, I'm also a vocalist, and I found that I can record 27 takes, and the first 2 are like usually a comp of the first 2, maybe a phrase from the third, and then they're all terrible until like 25 or 26, and then then they're immediately terrible again. You know, it's like law of diminishing returns or whatever.
I knew that too. I mean, having been a singer and worked in the studio a lot, there is something magical about those first attempts, because you're coming at the song so naively, and you really feel the emotion of the words because you're seeing them as if for the first time. And then once you've got that in your head, you can no longer conjure that up because it becomes too familiar to you. And I think that's where the magic is, and it doesn't really happen beyond like the 3rd take because you're just too familiar with it.
But critically, you have to be like a singer like Polly is you're so kind of, you just know how to get to the heart of it very quickly as well. I mean, if you're a really good singer, that like huge caveat to that approach is that you have to start from a pretty high level. You know, if you're not an expert, amazing singer, then it's going to take you 27 takes to get something used, you know.
Yeah, totally. And it's actually, it's akin to improvisation, which I'm kind of thinking about for the first time now, which is, you know, those it's like maybe the same synaptic paths or something.
It's very much like that. I work a lot with actors in the theatre, and it really is inhabiting a character in order to sing a song, I think. And it's quite emotionally draining. That's also why I don't like to do it too many times, because you have to authentically get across the message of that song, and to do that you do have to become a character and wholly embody it. But I remember having a very good feeling about Who by Fire pretty much on that first take when we were doing it, and because it was surprising me all the time. Tim had prepared the music for me to sing to, and that was surprising in itself. But also I was feeding off of that, and now when I listen back or when I watch the series, it seems like it's just magical, that take. And Tim and I were talking about this the other day, because in all my time as a recording artist, it's quite rare that you really capture the magical quality of something like that on tape or, you know, in record. It's rare and it's precious, and I think we did it on that song. It's like there's nothing I think that we could have done any better. It really is exactly right for what it was meant for.
What an amazing feeling that must be, you know, especially in this case, the honor of, you know, covering a Leonard Cohen song.
I know. So
Yeah.
I mean, I was approaching it with great trepidation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
As a rule, like I never do cover songs because I feel like don't do a cover unless you feel you can do it, either do it better or do it entirely
got some
differently.
covers under your belt.
Yeah, but it's a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
To do. If you're not going to do a very different version or a better version than the original, don't do it. You know, and I think our version is very different. I think
100%. 100%.
musically entirely different, but also transferring to a female voice, it has a lot of different meaning.
So were all of your musings vocally out of context? Individual? So you didn't have any like instrumental aspects?
We hadn't seen anything. Do you mean when we did the made up the instruments?
Sampling session. Yeah.
Yeah, it was there. We hadn't seen it, and I mean, I think we'd read 2 or 3 scripts. I never actually was sent more than 2 or 3 scripts. So, you know, as went through the series, I was as surprised as anyone else with what was happening.
I think, Tim, you were sort of improvising with what you were given, and they continued to like what you were coming up with, didn't they? So then that just gave you the confidence to keep exploring the palette that you'd pulled together for it.
That's right. Yeah. And I always had, I mean, my starting point when kind of reverse engineering back into it, once we'd made all the instruments together, was just, it was kind of rule of thumb that I would sort of start with Polly every time. And just because it gave me the sense that we were always playing in the same sandbox, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. And it kind of led me to really interesting places because it was the instrument we'd created. It was just, you know, I probably wouldn't have been taking as many risks. I would have gone, oh, that's a weird sound, I'm not going to use that, I'll find something more. But because it was that thing, I was like, no, I'm going to push through and keep trying to find something that
and works. You know, and you like back to that Raising Arizona score, when you guys have a chance to listen back to it, clearly there's such a limited like capacity early on in his career, Carter. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him recently in the process of the awards like Oscars and stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, his early stories of how he was creating scores was so different than the way we do now. And you can hear the sort of limitations. And one of my mantras is like, you know, you begin with limitation. And you always hold on to limitation, because limitation is going to be what having these limits are going to be what make it push you, right?
Well, it's also like it forces you to come up with fixes that are kind of unorthodox, I think, because if you just have every instrument in the universe in front of you,
it's a curse.
Yeah, it sort of makes it more, weirdly makes it more bespoke. I know what you mean, because
1000%. And so at the heart of my process is also developing custom instruments, doing sampling sessions really early on. And even as a band, we don't like write songs, rehearse them, and then go into the studio and produce them and like do multiple takes and try to get it great. We actually do the opposite, which is we go into the studio really early on with like just small shards of ideas. We don't let them bloom or blossom outside of a situation where we can record, because capturing the spontaneity, capturing the improvisation, those gut responses early on, no matter how far we push the production, how contorted and how many instruments and things we design from those sessions, they're all imbued with the spontaneous and the, you know, it's like building your alphabet before telling your story.
But that Polly and I were just talking about how we do that for season 2, because now we've got to sort of do it again. And now we have our sort of method for how to make the score for this show, but it's like, how do we also progress that idea? So
yeah, so psyched. Now, so the process of scoring, once, Polly, once you moved on, you're doing other things. I also work collaboratively, when I score, and I know it's, sometimes people, it's one of the things that's great is working with a team is that sometimes someone has the energy and someone doesn't, and you can still move forward. Now, what was the collaboration though, like with the, with Sharon, with producers, with the studio? Was it collaborative through the process, Tim, or was it?
I mean, it was very much Sharon coming back with notes and Dervla, the director of the show.
Yeah. I also work collaboratively, when I score, and I know it's.
Yeah, it was it was a tight group. I mean, Sharon's shows are Sharon's shows. So I think she keeps her eye very closely on the ball,
Yeah.
And then I would, send stuff to Polly, and we would kind of bat it back and forth and just to get feedback and make sure I wasn't, again, scaring her, and creating like a, some sort of future problem where she just hates me for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of trust. That she had to.
Yeah. No, and I said that to a whole bunch of people. I was like, there are very few recording artists who are gonna let you bottle their voice and take it away and do something with it. Seriously though, that's like, I think it's a real sort of testament to the type of artist you are, actually, Polly. You seem very interested in that experiment rather than frightened of it at all.
Yeah, exactly. No, it excites me. And, and I knew of Tim and I listened to Tim's work. And then when we met, we just got on. So that also developed my trust in letting him run wild with the Polytron. So we did call it does have a name. It's the Polytron. And it's just this big bank of poly voices. Yeah.
Yeah, just make sure you get, at least a couple $1 million from Native Instruments. If that thing.
I was wondering that if at some point one of those companies would come and say, "Can we release it?" But
at least
it'll never happen. It's
a million each, at least $1 million each.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's never gonna happen, so don't lose that hard time. Oh man.
You have to keep it under lock and key, Tim. People are gonna be breaking into your house.
I know, but thankfully the address isn't online anywhere. So
you think for season 2 you'll record fresh, or do you think you have enough to work with still?
We've already planned to meet and spend time actually together this time, which will be better. Because last time, because of my schedule, we only had 2 days. It was very short.
Yeah.
This time we kind of blocked out a week where we will just grow ideas together. And like Tim was saying, I think, we're going to use the basis of what we started, but we've got to take that a step forward. So I'm really excited to see how we can do that and bring in a different flavor. But, that will also develop as we get to see and read where the script is going. Yeah.
Do you guys think, Polly, do you think you would get your other, you're a multi-instrumentalist, like do you think you would call upon your other resources?
Yeah, we discussed this the other day, and I think so. I think we'll bring in some other instruments this time, because we've got the time to do it as well, and just see what we can bring out. Again, I think that week together will maximize what I can give to you, so you can go back and go into your little workshop with it all, your mad professor's workshop.
Yeah, Polly singing through a saxophone could be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
The pickups on her electric.
I was around her place in London last week and saw all the instruments you've got sitting around. It just made me want to set up microphones and start recording them. So
now with the expanded sandbox of season 2, I do hope that you wouldn't lose a kind of special restraint that you demonstrated in the score, which I admire a lot. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is to.
I actually approach every project that in the same way. I I don't have like a master template that I just bring to every show. I always make it from the ground up, because I just find that's the way to have the show have its own individual voice, you know.
Yeah.
So everything in that in the Bad Sisters template is, I mean, it's sort of half Polytron, and then, you know, quite a limited range of other stuff that I just thought would go well with it. So
One of my favorite cues, and forgive me if you hate me for this because there's basically nothing happening, is I'd say it's about 2/3 of the way through the series. I watched it really fast, so I a sense of yeah, time is a little warped maybe, but you know the one cue where it's just ride cymbal?
yeah,
It's like slow, just like half notes on the ride cymbal. And she's waiting in the car for her and she comes out. It's like there's something so unnerving
yeah,
about the lack of harmonic content, the lack of development, this like hovering stasis, this like, and it's you know, because again, I knew I was gonna have this conversation. I was like really paying attention and thinking about like how y'all were doing things differently than I would have. And that was one of those situations where I was like, I definitely would not have done that. And that's way cooler and more stylish.
it's
than
that was
something
a
I would have done.
sketch. That was a sketch that Polly sent to me, and that's exactly what I thought. I was like, that is really cool. Like that is it's sort of like, it's so kind of judo, and it's like minimal, you know, hanging threadness or something.
Yeah.
But it does the job of setting up the tension
Yep.
and making you feel anticipatory. And I ended up using that a fair few times, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that was like maybe the first instance where and then we hear it again later. It developed a little bit, but really caught my ear, and it was an example of the kind of restraint that I thought was like so cool. And like, you know, as a listener, I'm that way too. You know, I think about the restraint of like some of my favorite records, like some of my favorite records are like Portishead records that are just like so full of haunts because there's so much space for the ghosts to like swim in the space around the sounds. And yeah, I just felt like I felt that in this score, and like listening just to the score album as well. I'm like, it's cool. I hear so much play, you know, I hear so much fun.
Yeah.
But I also hear this like this deep haunt, and I think that's like striking that balance is like really tricky. So good job.
Yeah, I really believe you can, if you press it correctly, you can do a lot with one instrument. You know, I mean, you can really do any cue with one instrument if you know, if you choose the right one and play it the right way, you know.
Yeah, and if you have the support of, you know, your team,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I think that's something that's tricky with scoring. You know, it's always a family operation.
Yeah, I guess some producers have an expectation that it needs to feel fully orchestrated every
It
time.
needs to feel like something you've seen before that was successful, or that made
Yeah.
money, or like blah blah blah. You know, that was something that was really refreshing about working on Everything Everywhere, which is we literally Daniels never gave us a single note from the studio.
That was a brilliant score, by the way. I thought that was fantastic. So.
But you know, just having that sense of being decoupled from I don't know, it's like, not to be too cynical, but you know, like being decoupled from the money of it. Right. And just being allowed to sit and water it, you know, and tend it, and like, you know, rotate it for the sun, and just like focus on the work and not on like, you know, everything else that's happening in the room. And
it was a very small team. It was Polly and I and Sharon and Dervila really who were the only people who really spoke about the score. So
yeah,
you know, I didn't feel the heavy hand of you know, Silicon Valley behind it or anything like that. It was just really like a few people making a cool score, and it felt very well supported because of the collaboration we were doing. I think there's just a general excitement about it rather than there's no skepticism.
I felt that too. It was very supported, and we didn't have to fight battles to get things done. They were all the way through. They just seemed to like what we were coming up with.
Yeah, trust. That's great. So Polly, when you it looks like I need to wrap up this last question. You know, I'm someone who came at scoring in a roundabout fashion because I, you know, began making records, and it was my records that got me into doing work for picture and for actually I write a lot of music for dance, and so I think it was a combination of writing music for dance and my records that really paved a good path for me for, you know, to get into scoring. There is something about scoring that is, you know, it's world building, and your records, Polly, are also each distinct and kind of feel like you inhabit a fresh world in each. And I wonder if you felt like in the process of score, and was this your first series that you were involved in, Polly?
No, I was involved in a series in the UK called The Virtues by Shane Meadows. So that was the first series that I was fully involved in. That was a few years before this. But prior to that, I'd worked a lot in theatre.
Right.
So for about 13 or 14 years, I've been working in theatre and love doing that, love scoring for theatre and the development and the whole process of it. But then, then this TV series came along, and I've done a few bits of collaborative work on film before.
Like it's with songs or actually scoring?
I didn't catch that.
Oh, sorry, my series jumped in. Go away. Go.
I was like, would you like me to repeat that? Polly's laptop? Oh my God, that's amazing.
It does this occasionally. It's when you say something a bit like Siri, I have to say it quietly because it'll come on. You suddenly into action.
That was really funny.
Yeah, so that was my journey in. But I think what you're saying is inhabiting worlds, and yes, I think that's really akin to the way I approach making albums. And I still think of bodies of work as projects. I mean, maybe not even as albums anymore, because we sort of moved away from that. But I see, like I said, bodies of work. And often these days for me, that might involve writing, images and music. It's not, so I mean, all of those things are very filmic. It's creating a world, and what do you have to do that with? I've got images, I've got sound, I've got word, I've got space, and just think, what can I make in that? And yes, I think it is about finding the emotion, the era, the time of day, everything like that one would think about in a filmic way or in a screenwritten way almost. One of my favorite albums of all time is Desire by Bob Dylan, that he co-wrote with playwright Jack Levi, I'm not sure how you say it, but I was always fascinated because the lyrics on that are incredible, and they're all like stage directions. So that's, I've always been quite enthralled with that blurring of the line between songwriting, soundscape, theatre, film. They all
Enter Betty Valentine from the Upper Hall, or was that?
There you got it. If you look at the lyrics, they're all like theatre directors in the play.
Oh, so incredible. Oh, we just started talking about Bob Dylan and we have to go, but maybe next time. Oh man, such a pleasure talking with you both. Congratulations on this project, and on what's to come. I'm really excited
Thanks,
about
Ron.
season 2 too. That's
Thanks so much. Very nice to talk to you. Thank you.
you two
Yeah.
both.